Yeah, so I think the club was called The Cage back then.
Yeah.
So this must have been in, I can't remember what month, but something tells me it was December 05.
Yeah.
We linked up for the grand finale of the rap battle, and I remember I battled K-Star.
Oh, really?
I battled K-Star. There's a dude I battled first. I can't remember him. Made it to the semis where I battled K-Star.
Yeah.
And then from the semis, I met 5-4 in the finals. So then the funny thing, and I always say this, bro, like I'm glad I battled K-Star in 05. Because I think soon after that, he kind of specialized in freestyle battles and became a beast. And I must have met him at the time when maybe he didn't quite polish his skills like that, or whatever the reason must have been. But yeah, and I remember linking up 5-4, and we had this little chat in the finals. We spoke, we're like, yo, bro, because we're like brothers, you know, and and I remember for us as Pitch Black, because all four of us were in the battle.
Oh,
Diplomat, myself, 5-4, and Carnage.
Yeah.
So for us, it was like, we need one of us to win this thing. Yeah. So when it was now me and 5 linking up, it was just like, look, we already won this thing, and we obviously just had to like reassure each other that this is no hard feelings. We're just gonna have to say some dumb things to each other because it's a rap battle. So that's what ended up happening. And to be honest, at the time, 5-4 was making such waves that it was like, even I was thinking, this is 5-4's thing, you know, I'm only in the finals for formality's sake. We're gonna do this thing, then 5 is gonna win it. But to my surprise, the crowd were feeling me, and they ended up crowning me. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. But like, 5 at the moment was one of the biggest guys happening. Anybody that heard 5-4 back in that period will tell you that if we were ever gonna have somebody break out internationally, it was gonna be 5-4. He was that guy.
Man, I remember that. Yeah. That's crazy.
And I think though, for me, I think that's what kind of gave me also my respect and rep on the streets, because when people would hear that, oh, you battled 5 and you won this thing, then you must be nice. So from then onwards, it was just a different respect for me on the streets. And obviously I had the bragging rights. I remember singing about that for the next 10 years. I was walking around feeling untouchable, you know what I mean?
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, but that was like the biggest highlight of my career. And the other thing that again reassures me is, you know, the caliber of artists that came from that battle. The alumni, right? Names like the went on. Ray Doe was there as a battle artist as well.
Wow.
But if you look at what he went on to do, you know, with the Desert Eagle crew, you know, Digital X, and then went on to produce Slap, Mumpy, and some of the biggest names. I mean, everybody that came from there went on to do amazing things. So it just kind of shows what that class of artists were, you know.
No, man, that's actually really dope, man. That's really dope. And how would you say, I guess, for you as a hip hop artist, did you have passions for a specific part of the craft? Because I know some people love the freestyling and love the battling and love, you know what I mean? Some people don't battle so much, like, oh man, that's not really my forte. I prefer to be in the studio cooking up songs, you know what I mean? Did you ever have like a specific part of the craft that you felt like this is where I'm most at home?
Well, it was a mix for me, to be honest, and that's because I wasn't so much of a solo artist from the get-go. You know, being in the group, you kind of pick things up from people. Like I remember when I met 5 and them, they introduced me to Smack DVDs. And then I started watching Murder Mook and all these other battle rappers. And that's kind of where the interest came from. So we used to study these things, literally. 5 is somebody that his freestyles were scientific, so to speak. He would literally tell me, yo, if you're in a crowd and you're battling and you see someone in a gray t-shirt, instinct-wise, you're gonna want to say something about the gray t-shirt in your first line, and it's like, don't do that. Say another line before that's gonna rhyme with that, and then set the second line up for that. Like, those are some of the conversations would have. So I wouldn't say that specifically I came up trying to be a battle artist, but that came along the way, and it's obviously something I discovered if you're gonna, and especially the atmosphere back in LSK, back in the early 05, 06, if you call yourself a rapper,
you need that.
And I've been hearing that there's this guy called so and so. When we link up,
let's see.
Yeah, it was definitely, it had to be, let's see what we've been hearing about. So then you had to prepare yourself.
Yeah.
So then, hey, you just had to like arm yourself with some freestyle skills. So it was like a mixture of things, but I wouldn't really say I was somehow a battle rapper. I came up off, and that's because of the culture.
The culture,
but
man,
also coming up listening to Jay-Z. Jay-Z was, well, I think I guess you could call him a battle rapper as well. He came up from that, but the albums that made it big were obviously things that he spent a lot of time making that craft. And so for me, I fell in love with having to sit, write your bars, and well thought through bars. So the freestyle thing was sometimes, but really not really a battle rapper like that.
Okay. No, understood, man. It's just, obviously to understand everybody's journey with the culture and how they experience it, because even the basketball part of it is actually quasi a part of the hip hop culture, like you said. It's like it's not technically one of the like five elements of hip hop, but
there was, remember And One?
Yeah, bro.
And One swept the culture as well, and it happened almost at the same time with the freestyle battles. So even with basketball, like if you say you're a basketballer and somebody challenges you to a one-on-one, we're gonna have to see your And One skills then. So you're gonna have to freestyle your basketball skills, so to speak. So I guess the era that we came from demanded that if you were gonna be an MC,
show and prove,
you needed to like polish your freestyle skills, so to speak.
No, understood, man, understood. And I guess away from the battle and like freestyle side of things, speaking of songs, projects, albums, and like I guess music that was commercially available, would you say that there's a certain ethos that you embodied as B-Mak, like, that infused your music, where people like, if I'm hearing B-Mak on a song, this is what I'm hearing, this is what he reps, this is what he stands for, Is there like something there that you'd say, like an ethos, a core sort of thematic maybe, or?
Well, I'm gonna take it back to anybody that knows me from back then, and in case you don't know, I'm a Jay-Z fanatic. I came up off of Jay-Z, and that's not like, one thing that makes me happy to be a Jay-Z fan is I was a Jay-Z fan before Jay-Z was Jay-Z, so to speak. And this is like back from 99. I was already on Jay-Z. And some of the things that caught my attention about the way he made his music was I could easily relate to who he was and what he went through. From Jay-Z's music, you quickly knew this guy was born December 4th in such and such a year. He had four siblings. I mean, he was the fourth, born in his family. He had 3 siblings, and you knew certain details about his life from his music. And so those are some of the things that I embodied in my craft as well. From the get-go, if you listen to my music, you would pick things up about, okay, he was brought up in a single parent household. This guy loves his mama so much. He has older, like you know things about my life from listening to my music. And that's kind of like what I prefer doing with my music, as opposed to, and not that I have a problem with any other type, but then that's just how I would like to, do my craft.
And like there was something that you touched on a little bit earlier, which is something I'd like to explore further. You kind of mentioned how, I can't remember the word you used, but what rang in my head was thinking about the hip hop culture as like an underdog, because you mentioned how, the people who were popping were, the people we know, the household names, in a certain lane, and hip hop wasn't really occupying that kind of mainstream spotlight at the time. What were your personal experiences with, I guess, being an underdog, and like you say, you're in the battle culture, you're in the freestyle culture, it's underground. For some people, it's kids making noise in a car park, you know what I mean? Like, how did you navigate and how did you push and hit the goals you had set for yourself, considering that environment?
I remember this one time our song played on QFM, and a caller called in to like give his opinion on the music, and it's like, these boys are dreaming. They're talking about H2 Hammer in Zambia, H2 Hammer. funny enough, not knowing we were prophetic in our music, so to speak, because it was only a few years onwards that you started seeing all these things. But anyway, like what I meant to say with this whole analogy is, you know, we came from the time when that was the perspective, you know, and I think it's just like people didn't really give us the attention and want to connect with us, because young people always, like there's always going to be a wave of change. Yeah. And so when young people are onto something, my advice is just listen to them, you know, they are onto something. But I guess people were thinking, you know, they're being young, they're being naive, they're being this. So we weren't received with the warmest, you know. So it was we had to battle our way, and we lost so many people on the way. And one of the other things I'd like to mention is when I met Diplomat was from North Mid. Yeah. So I remember linking Diplomat up, and he was telling me, yo, do you know that Kangwa Exile is like a rapper? And I'm like, no, you're lying. And so he played me his stuff. And this like back in 2004. And I'm like, this guy is one of us. But if you see the direction that he took, it will obviously tell you that, you know, he obviously figured out that, you know, people are not ready for this kind of thing. And I remember you guys were on the same thingy, right? The diary?
Yeah.
Was that the same one?
Yeah.
Bro. So now when people heard Exile on that diary, they're like, we didn't know Exile. And I'm like, we've known that for the last 20 years. You know what I mean? But that's how much a lot of people had to adjust their style of doing things just to blend in and to be accepted at the time. But obviously there's a lot of us who just stuck to what we were doing and we just kept giving it to them until at some point, you know, people just got to a point where they're like, you know what? These guys are not even pretending to be this or to be that. It honestly appears this is who they are. And at this point, we have no choice but to accept them. And so that's what we've had to do, man. But it's been like a good 15 years.
Hammering, the long grind, bro. It's for me, it's such an interesting story, man, because I'm very curious about your perspective about how you'd characterize the hip hop game or the hip hop industry, whatever you want to call it now. You know, would you say, you know, I've heard some people make the claim that arguably hip hop is the biggest genre in the country now. I don't know how you feel about that statement or how you assess the state of the game.
It is, because it's definitely the most influential, bro. And that's only because of the numbers, bro. You know, you look at the Zambia's population, you have, is it 80% of the population is young people under the age of like 40 or 35 or something like that. So I mean, obviously, so you know that the more of the population, you know, is they love hip hop. And so the hip hop artists have some of them, they're the most influential there because they have the biggest followings. You know what I mean? And if you ask me, this is now just, maybe this is wrong, maybe I might be wrong, but this is what I feel happened in the Z music industry, right? You had people like Crisis who were rapping in English back in the 90s, right? And at that time, I don't think I knew any Vernac rappers back in the 90s that were making it mainstream. So I think it started off with people like Crisis, right? And then when people realized that, you know, maybe there's a language barrier and we can't get to the people, the Vernac rappers kind of took it up from there. And then they made it bigger. More people started listening to it, and I think that also now gave way again for us to come back and be heard by more people. So I feel like that's what happened.
The cycle, right?
That's the cycle that kind of happened.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's a really dope breakdown, man. A really dope breakdown.
Yeah.
I guess now going back to, I think we stopped the chronology at 2013, I think is when we stopped with that first single. I guess there's the era after that, which is 2013 and until now. You know, what if things look like for you? I mean, you mentioned something on the Cypher very recently about strategically how you've been handling things in more recent years. But walk us through the 2013 era till now and what you're thinking also going forward as B-Mak.
Well, this, you know, as I speak of my music journey, but it's also, there was other things happening in my life at the same time, you know what I mean? So I'm not the same guy I was back in 2013. So obviously I set out thinking, I'm gonna put out this music, I'm gonna get big, I'm gonna get signed, and then I'm gonna leave. And then come back and get the rest of the hood, you know what I mean? But then obviously life doesn't happen like that. But basically for me, it's just been growing, bro. And I think like our industry, it's still very much in its infancy. So it's not like we're talking about an era when things were like this and now we're living large and you know, it's still, we're still fighting some of these same things that I'm talking about to this very day. So for me, basically, it's just been growing my craft, learning my audience, studying what they, you know, and also studying the times that we're living in. Everything is different now. Everybody came up rapping, but now I feel like you can't be rapping all the way up because, you know, these kids nowadays are not trying to hear you rap. They want to hear some sing rap, you know what I mean? And that's like one of the things. Chanda's died. Yeah, bro, it's like, hey, you just can't be rapping like that.
You got it. No, I hear you, man.
So there's been so many things have been happening, and I've just been growing my craft, so to speak. But then with the steady growth, I mean, at XYZ, obviously, it's also had to be patience for me, you know. But then I've been happy with how the craft has been growing. And especially my music, because I think with I've never put out an EP. I'm set to put out an EP this year.
Okay, wow, that's big.
And it's funny we're having this this interview now because I think as of the last 5 days, I think I've recorded 5 tracks of the oncoming EP, which I have another, premature announcement. I'm not going to make this one, but I have another EP with somebody else, a joint EP. I'm not going to mention who. That's already been wrapped up and ready to be released. And then in the meantime, I just thought I could work on my EP as well, which I've started working on. So a lot of people would be like, yo, man, you've been in the game for so long. We haven't heard something like this. They have a point. But to some extent, this is something else I'm gonna give away. One of the EPs is called Timing is Everything. Okay. And for me, it's just like, look, man, I don't know what's happened this whole time, but funny enough, I feel like this is when it's the right time. And the other thing why I say this is, you know, when I branched off into the acting, when I got into Zuba back in 2018, 2017, 2018, none of us knew how big the show was gonna get. And then this thing just blew up, and now like I'm a household name. People know my face everywhere. I kind of feel like it helps with the music now. So if I could have done this before this, I'd have just been one of those other guys. But I feel like the market is ready for me now. You know, people know me as the actor. The people know me as an actor more than they know me as a rap artist, which people that have known me longer are surprised. Like, wow, like, this guy's an actor. This guy is a rapper. And other people are like, no, he's not a rapper. This is an actor. This is Joshua. I'm like, oh, okay. Am I?
No, I like
but
that.
Like, yeah, I kind of feel like everything has just been building up to this. And I feel like now is just the time for me to introduce my music to everybody else, to a bigger audience, so to speak now.
And I guess, you know, not to keep you too long, but one aspect I wanted to speak to, I guess maybe on a parting note, is when you think about, I guess, the younger individuals coming into the game, young guys and girls, maybe reflecting on some of your own experiences and your personal growth, saying, man, this is what I learned on my come up. If I could share 1 or 2 gems with you, this is what I would advise you. Are there any like kind of standout takeaways that you think, man, I wish I had known that, you know, when I was starting, you know what I mean? Are there any things that you would like tell the younger you, I guess?
One of the biggest things, bro, has to be persistence and patience and consistency. You have to be consistent. Like nothing happens overnight. And a lot of these things, like one thing out of most of the autobiographies that I've read of some of the people I admire the most, they'll tell you that there was that one defining moment when they wanted to give up on whatever it is they were chasing, and they thought, you know what? I can't give up. I've been doing this thing for 15 years. It hasn't given me anything back for 20 years. Maybe this is the time to give up. I feel like when you feel like that, that's the exact moment when you should just give it another, like just give it your all, just give it an extra more, and everything is gonna work out. Everything takes time, bro. That's one thing we learned. Like we always want results really quickly.
Yeah.
And I've made that mistake before, even with the music. Like, there was a time when I did the music and then I got to a point where I just felt like, look, man, what's the point? You know what I mean? And then I left. And then sometimes you start to see some of your friends that you started with start to, you know, reap some rewards. And you're like,
I should have
stuck around. So I am actually like lucky enough. I'm one of the few lucky people that have a second chance, so to speak, bro. And I'm really grateful for my personal journey, because I feel like my brand has just been getting bigger. Every time I feel like giving up and I give it a little more, I just keep ripping like these new blessings and benefits and everything. So for me, the one thing I know is discover what it is that you want to do, and then just stick to that thing and just stay there. A lot of things are going to happen, distractions, whatever it is, but just stay your course. And there's one thing I know for sure: when you give something, it's gonna give you back. So, you know, when you put the work in, don't let anybody cheat you that no, there might be a chance you don't get anything. That's a lie. When you put the work in, you get it out. You know what I mean? So yeah, bro, if there's one thing I can tell the young guys out there, keep doing what you're doing.
Nah, man, bro, that's some gems of wisdom, man. And you know, just really happy to have had the chance to sit down with you, man, and just hear, you know, how you see the game, how it's progressed, and the things you've contributed, man. So it's been my pleasure to sit down with you, man. And honestly, thank you for your contributions to the game. We pray that people continue to celebrate them. You know, I think that's what this is about. You know, we gotta give people like yourself the flowers, you know. We don't wanna wait for, for some other day.
Commend you, boy. Once again, thank you for having me. And I really feel like I said before, I have had these conversations with some of the vets in the game, and we all tell ourselves, hey man, we need to document this thing. Remember that time when such and such? And I feel like these things need to be documented, because it also helped the young guys coming up to know where the game is coming from, because we don't want them to start making the same mistakes that we made back in the day. But if we tell them that this is where we're coming from, then they might know where to pick it up from to make it better. So thank you for having me, bro. I really appreciate it.
Much respect, bro. Cheers. Man, it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Zambian Hip-Hop History. It's been my pleasure chilling with y'all today. Stay tuned for the next one. Dropping soon. Like, comment, subscribe. Stay in touch. Peace.